Welcome back, John.
Good to be back. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And we're moving into a territory now that I remember really, really well, which is exam period. Okay, I can't say I enjoyed it. I don't have fond memories from it.
I was just going to say, did you find that fun?
Not at all. Not in the slightest. Not absolutely no way. And I don't think many people did.
And when you said exam time there, did it almost take you back to
Shivers.
16, 18, 19 and exam halls and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, shivers down the spine, night before nerves, all of that kind of thing.
A bit like dentist and that kind of stuff, similar?
Probably worse, to be honest. Yeah, a little bit worse. I don't tend to have many problems at the dentist, actually, but exams is a different story. You've obviously got it at the other side in terms of where you are with your children. I've still yet to really experience that, I think, and it's something I'm not necessarily looking forward to, I must admit. I think they're the sort of bits that I feel a bit nervous about. How was it in your household, or how is it in your household in terms of that period of life?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I just want to say to everyone listening that actually, even though I'm in the education business, that I talk about it, write about it, it doesn't make it any easier at that time. It is stressful, and interestingly, my son was in the year group when GCSEs were cancelled. So because of COVID, so therefore his first real experience of this was when he did his A-levels. So almost didn't have that previous kind of GCSE experience to set him up for that. So it was very interesting for us, and but certainly not any easier than any other household. I think everyone feels the stress, and as we said in one of the previous episodes, especially now that it's a all or nothing kind of high stakes, that it's all on the final exam. You can't back up, or you can't have that backup of, well, I've got my coursework in the bag and that's worth 70% of it and I'm all right, I only need this. Lots of these assessments now are high stakes, all or nothing exams, which, doesn't help, the stress levels at that time of year. So
as we've always said, as part of this, we want to be real with what we're talking about. My role, if you like, here is to pull it back into absolutely from a parenting perspective. Your role is to give us the nuggets of advice and the expertise. What you're saying there, though, is that absolutely, households that are in an exam period, there is that element of intensity. There is that element, I suppose, in some ways of stress. And what we're trying to do here is manage that the most effectively that we possibly can with some of these tools and techniques that we're looking to give.
Absolutely. And the big message I want to start with here is that it's nothing to worry about having it feeling like it's important or stressful, because if it was the opposite and your child wasn't bothered and didn't care and was, all right, whatever, it doesn't really matter, I've got a few exams this week, like, you'd be probably more worried. The fact that it means something to them, the fact that it's creating a little bit of positive kind of stress and it's actually directing their attention and their efforts is actually, that's what we want, right? We want them to be bothered about it. We want them to be kind of really thinking and putting their energy into it. So it's just turning that around in your mind and psychologically seeing that as a benefit rather than as a negative.
So thinking about exams, thinking about that kind of approach, I remember specifically from uni days that one of the things that myself guilty of, and also those that I live with, was that kind of working as late as possible, preparing as late as possible, studying as late as possible, so that I could get everything in there ready for the next day. Are you telling me that's wrong as an approach?
What's really interesting is that actually lots of people, when I talk to people about that, they say that they do that, so they're almost telling themselves that they've done everything. They're almost trying to convince themselves psychologically that they've done everything possible and they've used every last little minute, so they can look themselves in the mirror and almost be okay with themselves and go into the exam thinking that I have done everything I can.
Couldn't have done anything more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because you've told yourself that. Not because someone else has told you, because you feel that you have done that. You've almost committed your time to that. However, what that does really, and we've talked about this before in terms of cramming, is that it creates that extra stress. It doesn't give you potentially a clear mind the next day, and all you're really doing is, I suppose, fooling yourself into thinking that, like, it's okay, Ross has done everything he can. He spent every last minute. He stayed up late the night before. He's done everything, and it almost feels like sometimes that you wouldn't be as well prepared if you finished early, but actually that's exactly the opposite, So it's the psychology behind it really that's important.
And in the study hack film, the short study hack film that's available as part of this particular topic, one of the things that John mentioned was about athletes and the fact that athletes wouldn't necessarily be cramming their training in the night before their performance. So I'm guessing this applies then in terms of education and young people.
100%. You would never ever expect an athlete, whether that's someone running the 100 meters, to be training at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, the night before a race, or whether it's a footballer, tennis player, etc. Like, they would be resting. Okay, they'd be resting their body, they'd be resting their mind, they'd be getting themselves into a place of security, knowing that they've done everything possible in advance of this, not still trying to do everything possible, and also knowing that rest and recuperation is part of the training program, and not thinking that they have to then keep going all the way to the end. If they do keep going all the way into the end, what generally happens is that they get, it might cause overuse injuries, it might cause fatigue. You wouldn't want an athlete to be fatigued and having their muscles aching and stiff going into that into that race. They need to be, at peak performance. The same goes for us. We don't want to be staying up very, very late because we're going to be tired. We're not going to have as much energy. And, we need to think about that as ourselves and what that means for our children, which is that they need to be at peak performance. They need to be well rested, ready to go, and not, staying up all hours just to convince them or you that they've done everything they can, which actually it then becomes counterproductive.
So if we were to take this period of time, coming up to exams now, night before the exam, what makes that perfect pre-exam night, let's say? What is it? What's the key ingredients? Right.
The first ingredient, which you can't do on the night, is to be fully well prepared in advance, right? And you can't suddenly do that on the night. So this is about starting a few weeks in advance, making sure that you followed some of our advice in terms of distributing your study practice, having a study planner, having everything prepared, and working back from if the exam date is end of the month, how are we working back from there, and how are we making sure that we're starting our revision, our study 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks out, so that we're not then suddenly having to do it on the night. If you've got that, and if you've got that ingredient in the bag, then I would profess to say that you should be finishing early in the evening. Nothing more after maybe 7 o'clock, 6, 7, 8 o'clock maximum, because you need to be then doing something that is restful, relaxing, and it might be something that you really enjoy. It might be a film that you're going to watch, and at that point when you start to put the film on, that revision is finished. You've already done everything you need to do. It's not, I need to stay up even later. My bag's packed. I know what I'm wearing tomorrow. I can now relax and get my mind almost soothed and be at peak performance the next day, having relaxed, having a great night, enjoyed something, ready to go tomorrow, safe in the knowledge that everything's done. I've got them. I can recall that information because I've done it 100 times over through my brain dumps, my flashcards, my look cover right check, use my revision guides, all those type of things. Tonight is about relaxing, just as a footballer, a pop star, an athlete would do. They would not be prepping still at that time. It's almost ridiculous to think that we would assume that they would do that.
Yeah.
However, we then think it's okay for our own children to do that before the biggest exam of their life. So it's when you put it in that sense, it's kind of, why do we do these things? Like, it doesn't sound right. Imagine if you were following your favorite, football rugby team, and you knew that they were still out on the training pitch at midnight. You'd be like, what's going on?
No.
So it's just putting those things into practice in our own lives.
Maybe that explains the terrible season that we're having, but that's for a whole different podcast.
Well, Matt, why don't you get out and have a look at their training facility?
What they're doing,
see if they're still out there at midnight.
And I think obviously one of the disclaimers, if you like, that we're saying there is this absolutely is not something to implement in terms of if the child has not started preparing until that evening, but we're very hopeful that's not the case, and that's why we're doing this, so that actually, from a parent and carer point of view, giving the tools as early as possible so that this really doesn't happen.
Yeah, if you're a young person listening to this podcast and you pick this up and you go, that's great, I'm going to tell my parents, I'm just going to just wrap
Put
in
a film on.
Yeah, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
I heard John Tate say that you don't need to do anything past 6 o'clock. Okay. No. That we're hoping that you have planned and you've used a study planner, you've distributed the practice, you've mapped things out over the course of the month and the week leading up to the exam, and that you've then finished at 6 o'clock and your finish line is 6 o'clock. not your starting line. This isn't about just doing nothing and putting a film on. This is about the film being the reward and the relaxation, or whatever it may be, a walk, it might be you go for a swim, it doesn't matter what it is. Yeah. It's about something that they enjoy and you enjoy, and maybe you can do together. Again, to feel that togetherness of we're supporting you the night before an exam, rather than leaving them on their own. You going to bed and saying, oh, well, don't stay up too late, and you think they could be up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. No. It's just not good.
No. And as with all of this, we look at this primarily from the young person's perspective, but equally, a lot of these aspects that we're talking about now would be perfect from an adult perspective as well, in terms of adults implement that in their daily lives.
Yeah, and I've written about this before, actually, about job interviews, and saying that the exact same thing applies. Make sure you've done your prep. Make sure you've got your suit or your dress out, or you've picked your tie out or your shoes. You know what you're wearing, because the last thing you want when you get up on a big event is to then have the added stress of, what am I going to wear? Has it been ironed? Is it like, you want that ready, hung on the wardrobe, knowing that like, I've got that sorted. I know what I'm wearing. You're basically removing any external stress, even down to, and again, a tip for adults here, driving the route to the interview or to the school at the time that you're going to do that. Because actually, one of the things I found often is when you put directions into a route planner, it gives you how long it will take at that moment in time. So if at 10, 11 o'clock at night you're asking the route planner how long it's going to take to get to somewhere, to your job interview the next day, and it says it's going to take 20 minutes, and then in the morning you put it in, it suddenly says it's going to take 35, there's a lot more stress there because you're suddenly going to be late for your interview. So it's driving that at the right time, working out how long it's going to take, driving the route, make sure there's no surprises. All the same things for your child before an exam. Get the bag packed the night before. Have the cereal out or have the breakfast out on the table or on the side of the kitchen, ready for ready in the morning. Have the shoes ready next to the door. All those things to just so people can slip into it and there's no hidden surprises and everything can run smoothly. Because the last thing we want is to increase the stress levels and the cognitive demands of our children when they've got something big on anyway. We need to have their mind fresh to tackle the challenges rather than the added challenges. That is, where's my favorite t-shirt? Oh, it hasn't been washed, but I needed it. And then we're into a stressful situation that can cause problems.
So as with everything, makes sense, doesn't it? Makes logical sense.
Hopefully, absolutely. For us as adults and for children, definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to illustrate that aspect, that difference between not staying up, cramming something in until midnight versus actually switching off, letting yourself prepare, ready for the next day, ready for the actual main event, which is ultimately the exam, isn't it? And hopefully that's something that yourselves take away from this, as with all of the different kind of tips and tricks and study hacks that we're looking to give away. And there's plenty more coming your way. So we look forward to seeing you again soon.